Welcome to Design Downtime, the podcast where we celebrate the joys of living a balanced creative life. I'm your host, Guy Siegel, a design director in Toronto, Canada, and I invite you to join me on this journey as we redefine what it means to be a successful design professional. Let's break free from the shackles of hustle culture and embrace the full spectrum of human experience, because life is too precious to be spent only in pursuit of productivity. Today, I'm thrilled to talk to Amy Ogg. Amy is a Seattle-based design systems nerd and coffee lover. She is currently working on the mindful design system at Therapy Brands and enjoys giving back to the community in her free time. Amy serves as the Seattle chapter lead for Into Design Systems USA meetups, serves as the mentor team lead at IterateUX, and also provides design mentorship through the iMentorship program at University of Washington's iSchool. When not immersed in something design-related, Amy enjoys making craft coffee at home, roller skating along the Seattle waterfront, and making music with her flute. Amy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Guy. I'm so pleased to be here. I have enjoyed the multiple episodes that you already have out. It's kind of my design downtime to listen to what other people are doing outside of design. Yeah, I'm just happy to be here.
It's wonderful to have you. And today you want to talk to us about coffee and latte art.
Yes, I do. So fun fact about me, I have a past life and career within the coffee industry, which I loved and still love to this day. I started out as a barista, and that kind of moved into management. And I started managing cafes, training baristas, and participating in latte art competitions. And I'm kind of a nerdy person in general. Like, I nerd out about everything I'm into. And so coffee was no exception. You know, it went into the deep end of the competition world. Like, okay, we are going to start with the local competitions. You know, it was so fun being surrounded by other people who are really passionate about coffee and making art in coffee. And that kind of led, toward world competitions and judging competitions and kind of exploring everything in that scene. And one thing that was really interesting to me in the competitive barista scene is how male dominated it is. The first competition that I went to was 60 men and 4 women. And I think that's not what people really expect when they're like, oh, coffee, we go to our local coffee shop and we see a lady and the barista serves us. Of course, there are men baristas as well, but I think people don't realize, in the competitive scene, how opposite that is. Very much male-dominated energy. I think there were a lot of articles written from Barista Magazine and different magazines and online sites that were kind of calling attention to how can we get more women comfortable with competing, and why are not more women competing. So it was interesting stuff to navigate, everything from people not really taking you seriously because you're wearing a hot pink shirt and you're super girly, and they're like, oh, it's some girl barista, until you can sling down a good pour. And then people are like, oh, hey, you actually know what you're doing, and they'll talk to you. Whereas I would take my barista team with me to a lot of competitions and coffee events, and the men would just right away, people would talk to them, and they were brand new, they didn't even know how to make coffee yet, but they're like, oh, so what, what's your favorite machine, and what do you have on drip right now? And so it was really interesting just kind of navigating that space. I had gotten a lot of advice from people where they were like, oh, cut your hair, dress in really neutral clothes, or, more masculine to fit in so people take you seriously. And I was actually really not about that at all. I was like, people can take me as I am. I don't need to fit into a mold to be taken seriously, and that's okay if you won't talk to me until you figure out I'm good at what I do. It was just kind of an interesting space to navigate, and I'm very competitive. I love being in that kind of scene. I get energy from it. It's all these people, and you have so many great conversations at those competitions of not just latte art and patterns and what people are doing, but you're able to meet people from all over the world. I poured head to head against Japan's world champion and people from Australia and Europe. And so it's just a really cool multicultural sort of connection moment. You learn how coffee shops run in different areas of the world and what's important to them, and really helps just elevate the craft for everyone. I really enjoyed that. Competed until 2019 or 20, around when COVID hit. Like it was more at the like local level at that point. Just a few random throwdowns here in Seattle. I used to teach at Seattle Barista Academy. So we would do anything from coffee history classes to latte art classes, and full on like teams would fly here from all over the country and even different parts of the world, where they would bring like their managers, their baristas, their new coffee shop opening up or their rebranding, and they would come and get a week worth of education from us on like how to run a coffee shop and how to pour latte art and how to make all these different drinks and cold brew and things like that. So yeah, I used to do that like on weekends. Interestingly, coffee is what led me to design. I was working in a cafe and one of my customers, she was coming up to get her coffee and she said like, why are you not a UX designer? Like you would be a great UX designer. I used to work at a UX agency, and she's like, the way you approach everything about like the workflow and how you handle customers and the presentation, she's like, you would make such a good UX designer. And at the time I didn't know what it was. So I went home and did a Google search, what is a UX designer? And I read about it and I was like, wow, this is like everything I love about coffee. Well, it's worked well for me.
I'd love to start, as you may know, with the origin story. Not everyone who goes and works at a coffee shop becomes a competitive latte artist, for example, or competes in international competitions. Where did you realize that was something you want to pursue?
From the coffee side, I feel like it's been like many interests for me, where something starts out as a job or a hobby and then it becomes a passion and obsession. Like I become more interested about learning about things, I think I came across the coffee competitions through some of my online research. I was just reading about like different brew methods and different ratios, just nerdy things online, and then came across the Coffee Fest, which is like a trade show, and they have a World Latte Art competition. They happen a few times a year. And I was like, oh, what is this? There's coffee competitions? I didn't know there was such a thing. And I saw it as a way of being able to network more with professionals and learn from them, but also as a way to kind of pressure myself, because I was in a position where I was teaching the other baristas, but like, who am I going to learn from? So, there a lot of those sort of events would have lessons that you could study with like one of the champions, or workshops that you could take. So it's like a really immersive learning experience. And I wanted to get better. And like to some degree, you get better when you teach. It reinforces what you know. And you can explore and be creative yourself, of course, but there's also so much value learning from other people. So that was definitely like a big reason that I signed up for those. And I was so nervous, like you submit your photos, and Instagram was pretty new at the time, but you would submit your handle so that they can go and look on your designs and make sure that, you didn't submit someone else's photos, like this is the real you. And you would have to write a whole thing about why you want to compete. So I was like super excited. The first time I went head to head with Japan's world champions. So they seed the competitions. I wasn't very good at the time at the world level. So I was at the very bottom, which means I go against the top. And so it was also fun over time to compete in those competitions and see how, as I got better with latte art, how I would also raise up in the brackets with who I was competing with. My top score was in 2018 in Baltimore, where I made top 16 for the world. And I didn't compete in any world competitions after that, but I think it would be fun to do again as a hobby rather than a profession. And there were some people who did this. There was one guy who was an engineer, and he just made coffee at home and would compete in these competitions. A lot of people, they would actually work at shops, so they're pouring hundreds of coffees a day and have all that time to, improve their craft. But there were definitely some folks that were just home baristas and just enjoyed what they're doing. And that's where I'm at now. Now I just have a home set up. I've been working in tech for several years, and I make coffee at home. I have manual brew methods and an espresso machine. And so I can nerd out to my heart's desire.
Tell me about those international competitions, because I've never seen a coffee competition. What goes on there?
All the things go on there. So they're usually 3 days. They start on Friday and they go through Sunday. And so the latte art competitions start them off early in the morning. So it's usually before many people have come to the conference yet. So if you think of it's like config for designers, that's what these competitions are for coffee people. And so very similarly, there's talks and there's presentations by a lot of the leading voices in the coffee world, similar to like Config or Schema or Clarity, any of these, design systems conferences. There will be like those featured speakers, different stages where there will also be like demos of new things. There's a trade show floor. So you'll see all these new products that are out, new machines, new, it can be anything from like cups. There were the Keep cups, these travel to go mugs that came about through Australia. The specialty coffee scene there is like really strong. So a lot of like the great products would come out of Australia. And so everyone was obsessed with the Keep cups to go, and at one point they had partnered with, I think it was Slayer Espresso. And so if you're out on the trade show floor, you could just go and get an espresso and they would have it in a baby glass Keep cup with its little lid. And you would get to take it home like an espresso cup to go. So that's kind of how they were like marketing that sort of thing. And then there's a bunch of different competitions. So latte art's not the only type of competition. There are espresso competitions where literally as a judge, you're just tasting like hundreds of espresso shots and you don't drink it. There is a spit cup. So you taste it to get like the mouth feel and all of this, and you spit it and then rinse with like water or sparkling water. So there's that during the day. And then there's also like a best coffee house competition where literally entire coffee shop teams will come and set up and have like their entire menu. And the judges go through like as a guest to kind of assess like the customer experience, the menu, order different items, and they get judged on the customer service, the presentation, of course, the taste of the drinks. There will be like a specialty drink and like a cappuccino and espresso, Americano, like all these different things that you'll try. I've judged for those, and it was really fun. Like I tried this one drink from a cafe. I think they were out of Las Vegas, and they had like this smoked apple drink it was like apple wood smoke, and it was very flashy with all dry ice. There's like all these really cool things that people will experiment with. There's also a cold brew competition. That one is like popularity competition, so you go through and participate just as a conference goer participant, and you taste the cold brew and you rate it. And so they're just testing it based on like how people have rated throughout the conference. So there aren't like specific assigned judges. It's just the general populace. But yeah, so there's that whole like trade show floor experience, which is like a lot of that stuff. When you go in there, you can be shopping for things, trying different coffees, watching the competitions go on. And then there's also workshops that you can attend throughout the day. So usually when I would take staff there, we would have a whole agenda and we would kind of divide and conquer per like the interests and the areas of development each staff wanted to kind of explore, whether it was more like management track related or something about like brewing or growing and roasting coffee. Like there's so many different facets that you can learn about, like from soft skills to technical skills. And some people would kind of balance according to their interests, or they kind of had a career track in mind. They want to become a coffee roaster or a latte artist. They would choose like different classes to take. And then we would all kind of be able to share back afterward and discuss like what we learned as a team. Then there's also like certification tests that can be taken to get like certified as a coffee professional or certified barista test. So there's a lot that goes on for those, but that is at the world level. The smaller competitions, they'll usually call them like latte art smackdowns or latte art throwdowns, and those will be held at like the local level. So different coffee shops will host them. And I've done that too. I've competed in them, but also hosted them at my cafe and judged for them. And they're really fun because they're casual. There's music, there's usually like food and drinks, and everybody's just getting together for a meetup. And there is not seating or that sort of like formalized bracket. So it's just you show up, you sign up, and then you go head to head with whoever you drew against. So you're not like vetted ahead of time. But those are really fun. And those also usually accompany the world competitions where like wherever that world competition is being held, the local coffee shops will throw like evening latte art throwdowns. And it's kind of that like redemption moment for people because, you know, when when you're at the world competition, everyone's nervous and nobody is doing their best pours. You always feel like, oh, you go at night, you know, everyone hangs out at this coffee shop and, you know, the stakes are not high anymore. So everyone's pouring amazing stuff and there will be like fun sort of gamified, you'll draw a card and that's the design you have to pour, you know, or you have to pour into like a really crazy container instead of a cup. Those can be just like really fun and relaxing.
How do you train for these competitions?
That's a good question because I only have experience training for those competitions as someone who worked in the industry. So I felt like a lot of the training was just my day to day. Like if I was on bar, I would be practicing, you know, just like consistency, making sure every time I'm pouring a Rosetta or a Swan or a Ballerina or a Tulip, you know, like I'm practicing these patterns, you know, is it a 4-stack, 3, 2, 1, you know, sort of tulip or just having that repetition throughout the day was really helpful. I think as a home barista, that's a lot more expensive because, you know, you're not making customer drinks, which are paid for. It's all on your bank. You know, you're paying for the beans and the milk. It would probably, you know, from a home perspective, probably be like sit down and have a similar, like I'm going to pour 10 or 20 drinks in a row and I'm going to practice this pattern or this pattern. You know, am I going to stick to one specific pour or am I going to have a variety of pours I might showcase as the competition progresses? Yeah, it's a lot of repetition and a lot of practice, and consistency is absolutely key. I feel like some people can pour like really amazing latte art, but to do that every single time, like for every single customer is going to get something that's just like beautiful and phenomenal, it's really hard because, you know, it's making sure that your shot has the right consistency. It's making sure that every single time you're steaming your milk, you're creating that right consistency, because if your milk steaming isn't perfect, good luck, you know, being able to create good latte art. So there's like a lot of pieces to that. But yeah, I think volume and consistency is the most important thing for preparing. I feel like other than that, I didn't really mentally prepare just because I enjoy competitions. For me, I'm like, yay, I get to hang out with people and I don't get nervous like in that way. But some people, you will literally see their hands shaking and they will do a lot of like mental preparation. Some people, they will wear headphones and they have like a competition playlist and they walk out onto the stage, you know, with their headphones on and they tune everything out. You know, other people are more social and, you know, they'll kind of UFC talk it up with their opponent. Everyone has a different method. And I think it really just depends on like how you handle stress and pressure and how your personality is. But yeah, for me, I felt like it was more just technical prep. And then I was there to show up, have fun and learn. So yeah.
You mentioned you're a very competitive person. And of course, having this, whether it's international or local competition, was really a big draw for you to sort of hone your own skills. Was it important for you to use those competitions as either proof for yourself that you can do this, or even a proof to others who may have not taken you seriously, as you said in the beginning?
For me, it was more about finding like mentors in the world. And I feel like that's been very much my approach outside of coffee as well. Like before coffee, I was in the music scene and I was also a professional dancer. And I feel like that was kind of the track of like, you have a teacher and then you're growing, but you get to a point where you need outside feedback that isn't someone who knows you, that can be very like objective to help you grow. And then just for the networking, like not necessarily to have to prove things to anyone because, locally people are like, oh yeah, you're our favorite barista, or we know that like, you run these events or you do these things. But for me, it was more about like just getting better myself. And it was a way of doing that at a cheap price. Like if you can't afford to have a mentor and pay them $500 an hour to come and teach you latte art lessons, it's a way to get that like judge feedback. Honestly, like between music and dance and coffee, I would take those judge sheets home and study them because, it was like that was how I was going to get better, that feedback. And then the connections that I made with people, that also bringing those people into my network gave me people on my side to be able to like have those discussions with and continue to, all of us elevate our crafts and learn from each other. And so for me, that was more the valuable part of it, more so than proving myself. What I mentioned about like people not taking me seriously, that was more like a funny aside that I noticed through the experience of like, oh, I totally didn't expect this would be a thing, especially, in like 2015, 2014, like go figure. You just don't realize that this is how the world is. You think, oh yeah, we've got equality and feminism, and yeah, of course, there's going to be like equal treatment. So that was more just like a funny thing that I noticed. And that I was also like, I don't need you to take me seriously because I'm not trying to be somebody. I'm just trying to grow as a person from where I'm at.
And you mentioned you also did teaching for baristas. And as you mentioned yourself, a great way to learn is by teaching others. What did you learn about yourself from teaching there?
I learned that I can talk too much. I think the hardest thing for me was time boxing, especially when it came to like coffee history, because I am really nerdy and I can just start nerding out on stories and like someone says something, I'm like, oh yeah, and like this thing. And so for me, like, watching the time and keeping to like when we need to like stay on track and get to the next thing, I'm fine to go over time, but other people are on timelines. I think that was one thing that I really learned about myself.
You no longer work at a coffee shop because you've made a career change. How do you still get to relive some of those days?
Well, having my little home barista set up allows me to have that routine as part of my day today. So, I get up in the morning and I turn on my machine. It is pink. It is a pink Ranchelia Sylvia Pro X with a double boiler and pre-infusion in the group heads. I will pull a test shot, make sure everything is dialed in, and then I'll make myself a latte. So, I pour a little bit of latte art. I still follow a lot of the folks on Instagram, and some coffee folks have moved on and no longer do coffee. Others, they're still working as baristas all these years later, and they've started their families. And it's cool to stay in touch with people that you've made like lifelong friends at. I mean, actually, my job teaching at Seattle Barista Academy, I got it through a latte art competition and through Instagram. Essentially, I'd gone to a latte art competition and one of the competitors there was like, wait, you're dancing barista? And I was like, wait, you're Tradle? Like we recognize each other from following on Instagram, and we had lived in different states and then met at this competition. And then he was like, we're hiring at Seattle Barista Academy. He's like, I would love for you to come on here. So there's just like those cool, opportunities along the way. But again, I am bunny trailing on stories, but how I keep it in my life is like, following these people, and not necessarily that it's like a career opportunity anymore, but people like this guy became friends. We're like, I went to his wedding. He got married. Now he and his wife have started their family, like they've become lifelong friends, not just coworkers or people in the industry. And that's something I really value. Sometimes I do miss the competitions, just like the energy and the fun. Like coffee people are just great people to hang out with. So I've thought of like, oh, maybe I should practice up and just like do a little local throwdown sometime, especially now I've been out of the industry so long, nobody knows who I am anymore. So kind of re-experience that, fresh.
I have to ask, I don't know if it's a very tough questions, but first of all, what is your favorite type of coffee? And since you are a master of latte art, what is your favorite design to do?
Oh, you do ask hard questions. So, funny enough, my favorite coffee is Turkish coffee. I know you wouldn't expect it from someone who had latte art as a profession, because there's no art in Turkish coffee like latte art. But my recipe, I really like light roasts because they're really floral and fruity. And I use a hint of rose water and then cardamom. And that is my Turkish coffee approach. And I love to start my mornings actually before even espresso, getting that little cup of Turkish coffee for my first meeting before, while the espresso machine heats up, start my day that way. For my favorite design, this is a really hard one because there's different types of design. There is a free pour where you're just holding the cup in the pitcher and controlling with angles and flow, the design. And then there's also etching, where you're literally using a spoon method and then drawing with a little stick or end of the thermometer is some tool like this. For free pour designs, my favorite pour is a ballerina, just because it's a feel good pour. I like how it feels. There's some that just feel very 1, 2, 3, 4 space 1, 2 space 1. Very I don't know, static, angular, this sort of thing. Ballerina just has the greatest flow. I really love pouring them. And then for etching, my favorite pour is a unicorn. That's kind of my signature latte art design for the etching style, just because it's fun and magical. And I think unicorns and coffee go great together.
What would be your recommendation for someone who wants to try getting into latte art, maybe at home, to try it out?
Yeah, talk to me. I can get you all set up. Yes, I can give recommendations on, what machine to get for the price point and for your space of your kitchen and size and all that sort of thing. But there's a lot of great resources online, and I feel like that's also just a really great place to start researching different machines or different, what kind of coffee you like to have. For example, if you like lattes at home, you're looking at an espresso machine. But if you like to do, drink pour overs or, a Chemex or something like that, you're looking at a manual brew method. So you're buying very different equipment. I think there can be kind of a lot of education, needed to kind of understand even what to get or where to start. But it's a fun journey. And a lot of people start out that way, just nerding out online. And then they would end up coming to Seattle Barista Academy to take a class and, elevate their skill from there. I mean, I don't work there anymore, but it is a great place. If you want to take a weekend class, for latte art or to learn about coffee, it can be a cheaper and kind of bite-sized way to edge into that. There's Groupon tickets and stuff like that. If people are coming from, different cities, you can look something up, academy in your city. I know Portland, Oregon has one. It can be a nice way to kind of get resources and get an instructor on your side that can kind of help you, because, a lot of these people that would take classes, they would connect with me on Instagram, and I would continue just supporting them alongside for months to come, just helping them with what purchases to make and how to adjust their grind and how to fix this and that. So I feel like having that go-to person in your corner can be nice. And for some people, that's just your local barista at the coffee shop. If you have a good craft coffee shop that you frequent and you know that the barista is knowledgeable about these things, you can even just go in there, get your coffee and ask them questions. And usually they love to talk with customers about, how to perfect this latte art design or how to fix that your coffee tastes too sour or tastes too bitter. And so, yeah.
Amy, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. I don't have the URL memorized, but just Amy Ogg on LinkedIn. My background color on my profile picture is pink, of course. So that's how you know it's me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Guy.
This is all for this episode of Design Downtime. Thank you for joining me. And until next time, I hope you enjoy your downtime.